It is the big one. There's no other way to put it. The single most important event in the sport of professional fishing. It's the ambition of a lifetime for every serious professional tournament angler and a few talented amateurs as well. And to win this one is a career maker. It is a chance of a lifetime, an opportunity that doesn't come along very often. Very hard to get into the World Championship, the Bassmaster Classic, and even harder to win. Some of the greatest anglers in history have never been able to hoist that trophy. And here we are, on the verge of it right now. Welcome to the Bassmasters. I'm Tommy Sanders here with Ronnie Moore in the Bassmaster studio, sponsored by Marathon, and we are ready to take a look at our pending, upcoming World Championship, the Bassmaster. I talk louder when I talk about it, Ronnie.
Oh my gosh.
I got to stop that.
Our words carry more weight when it talks about the Bassmaster Classic. This is the tournament in the sport. Tommy, to put it in perspective, for those who don't know the fishing industry, all the companies, all the manufacturers, all the anglers, the fans, everyone pauses and takes a stop during the week of the Classic because you either got to watch it or you got to be there in person. Our industry takes note, and that is why if you win this event, you can go down in legendary status, or it could springboard you into a pinnacle of the sport, an echelon, a list of anglers that have won this event that go down in history forever. So the Bassmaster Classic is absolutely incredible and important, and we know it with every single turn of the events. 50 years of this, it has never waned. The Classic means so much more now than it ever has as well.
Absolutely, it has not lost its significance. If anything, it gains from year to year. Each year it seems to be more important, more essential to whoever would hold that trophy. And as I mentioned, there's some dang good ones who never got to handle that trophy.
There are still some of our biggest names in the sport of bass fishing to this day that are still actively competing, and they would probably hang it up, Tommy, when they get that Bassmaster Classic, because we could talk to Hank Parker and we're going to talk to him and say, two-time Bassmaster Classic champion. We could talk to other guys who won their first Classic way back in the 80s or 90s and say, you are a Bassmaster Classic champion, and in the sport of bass fishing, that's how you're recognized forever. So for the 56 anglers that are fishing in this tournament, for one, they're proud to be there. There's 16 anglers fishing it for the first time ever. Maybe they're a little starstruck. Maybe you do want to soak it in and take it in, but you also have to remember this could be your last Bassmaster Classic, as easy as it was your first one. So don't take it for granted. We've seen burger flippers from Connecticut do it. We've seen some of the biggest names in the sport do it. It is a trophy that everybody who's ever wet a line would love to have.
And for all of us going on about how important it is for the anglers, it's super important for the fans as well. This is the 1 week where they own the sport of bass fishing. They get to gather. It's like a family reunion among thousands and thousands of people, huge crowds, big-time pageantry. They get to meet their heroes and watch them vie for a world championship. You can't do any better than that.
There's a lot of different perspectives, but like you said, if you're a fan and you've been there at one of the record-setting classics, or maybe you've just been there for the first time at a classic that falls in the middle of the pack for attendance-wise, you can say, I was there for that moment. I waved to him. He pointed to me in the crowd. I got to see my favorite pro at the expo. The Classic means more in the sport of bass fishing for sure.
And we always say no one remembers who finishes second in the Classic. That's not really true. Everyone remembers pretty much every day of the Classic. 3 days of fishing versus 4 days for a regular season event for our Elite Series qualifiers. But those 3 days are so full of distractions. So much more going on that it takes a lot of mental toughness to pull off a win, and experience helps.
Yeah, you're going to go to fancy dinners with your spouse. You're going to go all the pageantry of the media row. You're going to see fans into town that notice you or notice your truck and want to take a photo and wave. A lot of distractions, like you said. And after a couple days of sitting on the bank and not practicing, you got to remember, oh man, we have to fish at Grand Lake this week. One of the most challenging yet rewarding bodies of water and a great time of the year, March 22nd through the 24th, a late March Classic at Grand Lake. We could see some explosion and fireworks for sure on this great body of water.
It is a favorite destination for classic competition. We'll take a deeper look into fabulous Grand Lake in Northeast Oklahoma when we come back.
The Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Classic, presented by Jockey Outdoors, is sponsored by Humminbird, Mercury, Toyota, and by Ranger Boats.
You know, it's no holds barred, no points, just go at it and pick up your best gun and fire away. And that's basically I like that style. It's the kind of baseball player I was. I was one of those all or nothing kind of guys when I was at the plate. You want to get to the top, there's one place, and we're all fishing for first.
The #1 event of the year for the season in bass fishing, the Bassmaster Classic. And we have got it coming. From the minute it was announced, we were elated to hear that it was going to be at Grand Lake. This lake has been around since 1940. It's formed by the Neosho River coming down from Kansas. Also, the Elk River comes over from Missouri. Also, the Spring River, another big tributary from Kansas, all part of the Grand River Dam Authority. 1,300 miles of shoreline, just for the essential stats. About between 42 and 45,000 acres is Grand Lake of the Cherokees.
Grand Lake has great quality largemouth in this body of water, and that's why I think the quote was from Classic champion Cliff Pace. I don't mind fishing a great body of water at a tough time of year, because you know if you're getting 5 bites a day, they're probably going to be good bites. So you're going to get to your goal weight, your target weight, and at the Bassmaster Classic, that's all that matters. You could catch 100 fish a day, that's fine, and you could come in last. You could catch 5 fish a day and win the most prestigious tournament in the sport. And when you're at Grand Lake, the deal with the last few classics we have had there in February, it could be snow on the ground in that part of Oklahoma. It could be terribly cold temperatures, or it could warm up really fast. It's kind of the unknown. So when we see it on the schedule, we're excited, because Tulsa's always been a great host for Bassmaster Classics. Sure. Grove, Oklahoma is a great place to have a tournament venue. Wolf Creek right there is where we take off from. But when we break down the lake, there's 3 portions to it. You know, there's Upper Lake, there's Mid Lake, and obviously Lower Lake, like you could break down most traditional lakes. But if we look at the Lower Lake, where the dam is at the south end of Grand Lake, a lot clearer water. It's going to fish a lot more like a reservoir. You know, you've got those 45-degree banks, but you've got some creeks, you've got some dock action that you could get in there depending on the water levels. There's a lot of different areas. You could pop out to the secondary points, you can go out to the main lake points. Some of those deals have those flats that extend way off of those points, which means those fish that are pulling up from their deep winter patterns can jump right up on those long points as they work their way towards the backs of the creeks. So a lot of areas. When you think about the south end of the lake, you got the Ketchum Creek area, you've got Drowning Creek, then you make your way north a little bit and you've got Horse Creek on your way up to Shangri-La. 2 places rooted in bass history. You've had a lot of high finishing people at Grand Lake in that Shangri-La, Monkey Island area. And if you think about it, as you continue to make your way north towards the mid-lake portion, we can now transition mid-lake. You're gonna have a mixture of watercolors. This is where you kind of get the best of both worlds. It may have some stain like you would have upriver, but it does have some clarity aspects. It's not completely blown out. As you make your way up a little bit farther north, you get to the main bridge right there at Grand Lake where Wolf Creek is. It's a staple to our bass tournament coverage there. Then you get to the kind of the reaches of the Elk River where it dumps in from the east to Grand Lake. That place is an X factor. We've seen it in past classics. And if you go anywhere north of there, Tommy, you're in the Neosho River territory. And I'll say in past classics, that upper river has factored on a day or two of competition. It's hard to get 3 good days out of the river up there. With the tournament being late March, we could possibly see more stable river conditions to where our field could spread out to one end of the lake at the dam or all the way up the river as far as you can get.
Yeah, and of course, the second time we had the Classic there, it was actually one in the Elk River, the other tributary coming over from Missouri. Submerged vegetation, not a big deal on Grand Lake, but there are, of course, you know, great habitat, big creeks, small cuts, and well, brush on the shoreline, which could be submerged a little bit depending on water levels and things like that. Plenty of boat docks, rocks, etc.
You may see rocks everywhere and think, where am I fishing? But each rock is different. You're gonna have those, you know, tabletop stepping stone banks that's rock, you know, all the way down through there. There's going to be those flatter areas that transition from chunk rock to pea gravel. You're going to have some barren mud banks that have some rock off the bank that you can maybe find a group of fish off of a couple rock veins. And then obviously you get down towards the mid-lake to south end, you're going to have docks along those rock banks. I saw Bill Lowen up close and personal flipping docks, and in between the walkways. Those walkways provide great cover for those fish that are moving from deeper water up through the dock area up to the bank. And then so we're going to keep an eye on a lot of different structures there, but like we said, it could be cold as can be, or it could be already into the spawn time of year. Late March is definitely a wild card.
Talk about could have cold weather. Let's look back to 2013 and take a look. It was zero wind chill when these guys started on day #1. We'd had snow and ice in the days previous, the practice days. Cliff Pace wins the thing wire to wire, and he starts the final day, though, with a 7-pound lead, but it's not over at that point.
Yeah, like he said, when you're fishing a good body of water at a tough time, the tough time may greet you at some point, and others explode with big days. We know Brandon Polinick, we know Hank Cherry, we know Jason Christie. We're all fighting for that classic as well in 2013, and all three of those guys I just mentioned, Christie, Polinick, and Cherry, will all be, participants and factors in this classic as well. The one big thing, Tommy, is that we've had 4 anglers that will be fishing this classic that got a taste of 13 and 2016. We'll have Greg Hackney, Jason Christie, Brandon Polinick, and Brandon Card all have fished the last 2 classics there, which gives you at least some kind of game plan to work off of from those 2 events. But we obviously saw the big fish can show up like they did in 2016 as well.
That's the playing field, and that's the history, a little bit of the history of fantastic Grand Lake, the site of the 2024 Bassmaster Classic. When we come back, we talk more about the Classic and the important people, the people who have triumphed in the World Championship. That's in just a moment.
That's the kind right there, baby.
The Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Classic presented by Jockey Outdoors is sponsored by Yamaha, Rapala, Progressive Insurance, Nitro Boats, and by Power Pole.
When you spend your whole life, your whole career, trying to get on top of the mountain, I mean, you fight and you fight and fight, and you almost get to the top and you get knocked down, it wears on you. And to finally, bust through and get up there, it's pretty cool. I mean, it was gratifying. It kind of put me at ease. But when you climb that mountain and you get on top, there's 50 guys that's trying to creep up there, and it's a fist fight to keep them off.
It is time to talk about the Classic winners. We can start, I think, Ronnie Moore, with our last few winners. Of course, Jeff Gustafson, the first Canadian, second international to ever win the Bassmaster Classic. Jason Christie of Oklahoma, important point right there, who won at Lake Hartwell. And before that, it was Hank Cherry, back-to-back wins at Lake Guntersville and Ray Roberts in Texas.
Yeah, those last 3 Classic champs over the last 4 years of our event are very different and for various reasons, but they all have different aspects to their game that translate well for the Classic. Jeff Gustafson was a smallmouth guru, is a smallmouth guru, winning with all smallmouth at our last event in Fort Loudon Tellico Lakes in Knoxville, Tennessee. Then you have Jason Christie, one of the best fishermen of all time. He's came close in so many Classics, especially at Lake Hartwell in South Carolina, coming up just a fish short of winning previous Classics. There is a place that he has a great track record. For him to win the Classic in 2022 on that body of water proved a lot to the world of fishing, proved a lot to Jason Christie himself as well. You know you're a good angler, but until you win the big one, you don't know if you can win the big one. Then for a guy like Hank Cherry, we know the impact of good momentum, confidence. Hank Cherry wins the 2020 Classic, the 50th running of the Classic at Lake Guntersville. He does so in dominant fashion, having a giant day 1 weight, had a lead and was able to ride that all 3 days and win wire to wire. Then he carried that momentum to a Classic time period we haven't seen in a long time. We had a summer Classic in Texas at Ray Roberts. He was able to still employ what he was good at, stay focused and stay in a centralized area of the lake and win back-to-back Classics, something that has rarely ever happened in the sport of bass fishing. So for Hank Cherry to do that, that has definitely paved a way for his family to have a successful lifespan since then financially. He is now known as the champ, back-to-back Classic champions. So for our last 3 winners, they all have also a bone to pick with Grand Lake, if you think about it. Hank Cherry, his first ever Classic, 2013, it was the What If Classic. We said we would never talk about it again because he's now won, he's climbed that mountain. But when you look back on it, that was a big time thorn in his side, coming so close to winning the Classic, but coming up short. He has now grown as an angler. He is one that can right his wrongs, and he's already won 2 Classics. He's got nothing to prove, Tommy, but he would love to have a bone to pick with Grand Lake.
That was really his coming out for top-level
100%.
professional bass fishing as well, and he had the chance of a lifetime. So improbable, wasn't quite able to get there.
And then you think about Jason Christie. You said the Okie from Oklahoma, Jason Christie, now fishing a Classic in his home lake without having to be a first-time Classic winner. He has already won the Classic. Now he can go and just win at home. A lot less pressure, but a different kind of pressure, knowing how to handle the pressure. He knows there's going to be a ton of boat traffic directed his way. He knows what to expect on this body of water, how to almost game plan his day. There's going to be some secrets and some things that Jason Christie holds back and saves for Championship Sunday of the Classic, because you know you got to pull out all the stops to win. And then we think about Jeff Gustafson. He's from Canada. How does he relate to Grand Lake? He is now roommates over the last year or two of competition with one of the best anglers in the world, Jason Christie. So if you think he doesn't have some intel on Grand Lake, or at least some comfortability knowing that his roommate is the expert of this body of water, the guy we need to keep our eye on, he now gets to loom in the wayside of, I'm the defending Classic champ, but if there's ever a body of water where I'm not going to have all the eyes on me, it's probably Grand Lake. There's going to be eyeballs on a lot of other competitors like Cherry, like Christie, and like some of our guys who are seasoned but haven't won the Classic yet so far.
Now, you totally messed up the odds on Gussie, on Jeff Gustafson. Now, by
he's an underdog
rolling
almost.
out that piece of info right there.
Yeah, he's a little bit of an underdog, but he's going to be well prepared for this. And we talked about it in the first segment. Winning a Classic changes your life, but it also, like Larry Nixon with Megabucks, when you know how to win the Megabucks tournaments back in the day, it prepares you to win another one just as easy. So the Classic is no easy feat, 3 days of changing conditions, but these 3 past winners are definitely well prepared to possibly use that momentum and the lessons learned to maybe go and win their second, or in Cherry's case, the 3rd Classic ever, which would put, if you win 2 Classics, Tommy, you're in top tier company. If you win 3 Classics for Hank Cherry, you're in company that's only been done by 1 or 2 people ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there are but 3 of 56 anglers who have qualified here. Talk about the pathways that someone else might be able to hold a trophy at the end of it all.
Different time of the year. And we're going to get into in the next segment some of the notable names that haven't won a Classic that could have Grand Lake spell out the recipe for success for them.
All right, continuing our preview of the Classic 2024 when we return momentarily.
You know, you never know when the next Classic's going to be your last one, and I know how hard it is to. I've been lucky; I've got to fish the last few, but you know, you got to enjoy every moment of it, but like try and do your job too.
The Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Classic presented by Jockey Outdoors is sponsored by Minn Kota, Skeeter Boats, Bass Pro Shops, and by Dakota Lithium.
You know, honestly, I don't know what it would mean to win the Bassmaster Classic, but I just want to try it. I would think it means more to me than any other thing in fishing, or, you know, honestly, it would be one of the highlights of my life. You know, that I do know.
Welcome back. 56 anglers have qualified for the big one for 2024, the World Championship, the Bassmaster Classic. You want to talk about some of the folks as far as experience and other reasons that make them maybe big-time fan picks, including us, to win the Classic?
Yeah, some of the best anglers in the sport that haven't won a Classic yet are the most seasoned for this event. Greg Hagney, 18th appearance to the Bassmaster Classic this year in 2024. Brandon Polinick, 13th appearance and good experience. A second-place finish at Grand Lake in 2013. All it takes is one bad day, and you can no longer win the Classic. So getting off to a good start is important. We mentioned last segment one of our favorites and a Classic champ in the past, Jason Christie. It is his 10th Classic appearance, double digits for Jason Christie. And then our 4th and 5th most seasoned anglers in the field, Hank Cherry, 2-time Classic champ. It's his 8th Classic, and Jacob Poroznik, also his 8th Bassmaster Classic. He's one who always shows up for the big one as well. But those guys will get the publicity. Most seasoned, we know their skill set. They've won on the Elite Series plenty of times as well. But when we think about some notables, Tommy, some guys that'll run under the radar, you think about regionally, let's just go off the top. Luke Palmer lives in Oklahoma. Finally got off the schneid and won his first Elite Series event at Santee Cooper last year. We knew it was a long time coming. He is one who's shown up big at Lake Hartwell in the Bassmaster Classic. He goes under the radar and does his business, but when the big fish show up in the big moments, Luke Palmer's lingering around there somewhere. Also, for regionally wise in Oklahoma, let's think about Kenta Kimura. He may be from Japan originally.
The Ironman of
yes,
competition.
Yeah, the one who fishes 19 Bassmaster events a year. He fishes 50% of our B.A.S.S events. Kenta Kimura, when he does come back to the United States, he puts his roots down in Oklahoma. Grand Lake is the lake that he would consider home. He's got a great opens finish there as well. He is really coming in strong, not only making the Elite Series and then making the Classic through the Elite Series points. He's been top 5 in opens points the last 2 seasons as well. So that's 2 guys that are Oklahoma-based. Who are some other guys that, I mean, are trending in the right direction?
Well, we think back to the 21 Classic, Ray Roberts. Matt Airy was a guy who did very, very well there. I see a lot of similarities between these 2 fisheries, except, you know, of course, a higher elevation up there in Oklahoma, foothills of the Ozarks, but a lot of likenesses as well.
If there are guys that like rocks and dock skipping, Matt Airy in North Carolina is probably going to be one of them. And you mentioned him. He's fished 3 semi-pro or top-level events at Grand Lake in April. So the first week of April, the second week of April, and the third week of April. Just a couple-week difference from our tournament scheduled dates. He's got a second, third, and a fourth, Tommy. So maybe he could just back it up one more week, last week of March, and win the Bassmaster Classic. That would be a, I can't say a cherry on top because that's who beat him in 2021, but that would be icing on the cake for Matt Airy if he were to do that. Another guy that this lake looks like it would set up well for them, Stetson Blaylock, an Ozarks angler, a Ouachita, a White River, someone who knows Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma fishing. This sets up well for him in 2 of the last 4 classics or 2 of the last 5 classics, Tommy. He's gotten top 5s. So I think he shows up big in the big moments as well. So that's another guy that you got to keep your eye on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. With some great names that you mentioned there. We started out with a guy named Greg Hackney, who this is the only thing missing from his resume. I got to think he's got to be super dangerous this time around.
Yeah, and I think that early in his career, he made the Classic out to be not more than it is because it is very important, but he kind of didn't enjoy the week. He was so serious about winning that his finishes showed that he wasn't as productive as he normally is. He's starting to enjoy it at this stage of his career. He's starting to enjoy just being at the Classic, a lot more laid back. And I think one of the scariest versions of Greg Hackney is either when he's super intense and dialed in or when he's more laid back and laughing than ever before. He's a dangerous one to watch out for. And another guy who's not going to show that he's confident, I'll put Lee Livesey on that list.
Oh, absolutely.
He's had
I was thinking about him as well.
He is a closer, and he's won at a lot of different levels for the Elite Series and the Opens. He's got 3 really good Classic finishes in his previous 3 Classics. He doesn't really falter in this event. He hasn't necessarily got a bunch of top 10s, but he's not going to be outside the top 15 or 20 most times.
Absolutely. Could be absolutely riding the big wave of confidence going into that. Have we missed somebody? Of course we missed a lot of people.
56 of them,
56 anglers, and I think you can join us in congratulating each and every one of them for qualifying for the big one, the World Championship, the Bassmaster Classic from Grand Lake, and we will see you there.